You wore the bracelet. That means we're lifelong partners now. Jace only put it on because it looked cool. The silver band was smooth, humming with an almost imperceptible warmth. It fit perfectly around his wrist, too perfectly. Before he could even admire it, the bracelet tightened with a soft click. Hey, is it supposed to do that? Jace asked, turning to his alien friend, Karin. Karin was a Zalari, a species known for their bioluminescent markings and feline-like grace. Right now, her markings were flashing in erratic pulses of bright orange distress. You wore it, she shrieked, her tail frizzing out. You put it on. Without asking? Jace blinked. Yeah? Is that a problem? Karin grabbed his wrist, her eyes wide in horror.
Jace.
That is a Zalari bonding bracelet. Once it locks, it cannot be removed. So it's like a friendship bracelet?
Cool. No.
It means we are lifelong partners now. Jace froze. Wait, what? Karin groaned, rubbing her temples. Zalari do not date. We bond. That bracelet is encoded to my genetic signature. The moment it activated, it registered you as my mate. For life. Jace gulped. You mean like forever? No takebacks? No takebacks, Karin echoed, her bioluminescence shifting into an embarrassed blue. A long silence stretched between them. Then Jace sighed. So, do we, sign some paperwork or something? Karin buried her face in her hands. Stars help me. Chapter 1. The Bracelet. Jace didn't think much of the bracelet when he first saw it. It was sleek, silver, and unmarked, just the kind of thing he liked. It had been lying on the merchant's table among a pile of other trinkets in the bustling market of Orvon Station, a trade hub nestled between human and alien space. The vendor, a squat reptilian fellow with too many teeth and a sales pitch smoother than oil, had insisted it was a rare Zalari artifact. Only the finest craftsmanship, the merchant crooned, watching Jace's hesitation. Made from Orvarian steel, lightweight but indestructible. It will fit perfectly, guaranteed. Jace smirked, flipping the bracelet between his fingers. Yeah?
How much?
For you, human? A mere 50 credits. Jace snorted. That's a little steep for a hunk of metal, don't you think? The merchant grinned, all fangs and mischief. Ah, but this is no ordinary bracelet. It is symbolic. A treasure of the Zalari people. Jace had no idea what that meant, but he liked how it looked. Shrugging, he tossed the vendor the credits and slipped the bracelet onto his wrist. The moment he did, something clicked. The bracelet tightened, just slightly, but enough for Jace to feel it. A second later, a faint warmth pulsed through the metal. His brow furrowed.
Huh.
That's weird. The merchant was already packing up his wares. No refunds, he called over his shoulder before scurrying off into the crowd. Jace rolled his eyes. Great. He turned to leave the market, not thinking much of the bracelet, until he ran into Karin. Karin was Zalari, one of the few Jace had ever met. Her species was tall, lithe, and covered in soft, opalescent skin that shimmered under the station's artificial lights. Her bioluminescent markings pulsed gently, shifting from a calm blue to a sharp orange as she locked eyes with him. Then she saw the bracelet. Karin's markings flared bright red. Her feline-like ears flattened, and her tail bristled. You wore it, she shrieked, stepping forward so quickly that Jace almost stumbled back. Jace blinked. Yeah. Karin grabbed his wrist, her grip surprisingly strong.
Jace.
That is a bonding bracelet. He frowned. Okay. She inhaled sharply, her markings flashing in rapid patterns he couldn't decipher. Do you understand what you've done? That bracelet, it's not just jewelry. It signifies a lifelong bond among my people. You, she gulped, her voice almost cracking. You have just marked yourself as my mate. Jace froze.
Wait, what?
Karin groaned, rubbing her temples. Once activated, it cannot be removed. It is genetically coded to the first person who wears it. Jace tugged at the bracelet, suddenly feeling a surge of panic. So, you mean... Karin's bioluminescence flickered into a deep, mortified blue.
Yes.
We are bonded. For life. Chapter 2. No Takebacks. Jace sat in stunned silence as Karin paced furiously in front of him. They had relocated to the quietest corner of the station's communal lounge, but even here, other travelers cast curious glances at the fuming Zalari. "I can't believe this," she muttered, tail flicking in agitation. "This is a nightmare. A disaster." Hey, Jace interrupted, raising his hands. "It's not like I did this on purpose, okay? I didn't know what the thing was." Karin shot him a glare, her vibrant green eyes narrowing. "That merchant had to know. Bonding bracelets are sacred among my people. They aren't something you just sell to outsiders." Jace sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Well, I can just take it off, right?" Karin's expression twisted into something between pity and exasperation.
No, Jace.
"That's the point. The bond is permanent." Jace looked down at the bracelet. It seemed so harmless. Just a stupid trinket he'd bought on a whim. "There's gotta be a way to undo this." Karin hesitated. "Technically, there is one way." Jace perked up. "Great. What is it?" She grimaced. "You would have to challenge me to a duel." Jace blinked. "A duel?" Karin nodded. "A formal combat challenge. If you defeat me, the bond is nullified." Jace considered this. "And if I lose?" Karin's bioluminescence flickered with amusement. "Then the bond is confirmed, and we must complete the ritual to make it official." Jace narrowed his eyes. "What kind of ritual?" Karin smirked, her fangs peeking through. "It involves vows. And a kiss." Jace groaned, slumping back in his seat. "Fantastic. Just fantastic." Karin crossed her arms.
"So,
"Do you want to challenge me?" Jace looked at her. He wasn't exactly weak, but Karin had years of combat training. The odds of winning were about as good as him suddenly sprouting wings and flying out of the station. "Yeah, that sounds like a bad idea." Karin huffed. "Then we need to figure something else out. Because, Jace, whether you like it or not." She gestured at the bracelet, her expression softening just slightly. "You and I are stuck together now." Chapter 3. Cultural Misunderstandings and Galactic Consequences. Jason sat on the metal bench inside what he now recognized as a luxurious alien ship, rubbing his temples. Across from him, Virida, the panicked alien girl with brilliant azure skin and 4 luminescent eyes, paced back and forth, her 3-fingered hands fidgeting with the controls on the wall. Her lavender hair twitched slightly in response to her stress, some kind of biological reaction Jason didn't have the knowledge to understand. "I don't see why this is such a big deal," Jason said, exhaling. "It's just a bracelet." Virida whirled on him, her lower set of eyes blinking rapidly. "It's not just a bracelet, Jason. It's a Von Kell cuff. By wearing it, you have officially accepted my house's lifelong partnership contract." Jason frowned, looking down at the sleek silver band wrapped snugly around his wrist. "And you just left it lying around?" "I thought it was a gift." She let out a strangled sound that Jason interpreted as both exasperation and despair. "It is a gift. The most sacred kind. In my culture, this is beyond an engagement. This is a binding contract that connects us in all matters, legally, politically, emotionally, forever." Jason groaned. "Oh, fantastic. So what?" "I'm married to you now." Virida's face darkened to a deep violet hue, which Jason was starting to recognize as embarrassment. "More than that, this isn't just some human concept of marriage. It means our lives are entwined, our fates interwoven. If you reject me now, it could trigger a catastrophic diplomatic incident with my people. And my father." She suddenly stopped, eyes widening with horror. Jason raised a brow. "Your father?" Virida hesitated. Let's just say, he's important." Jason leaned back against the ship's bulkhead and crossed his arms. "Virida, I need specifics. Who's your father?" She swallowed audibly. "The High Warlord of the Von Kell Dominion." Jason froze. "The Von Kell Dominion? You mean the highly advanced, galaxy-spanning warrior empire that the Galactic Council tiptoes around?" Virida nodded meekly. "That one." Jason sighed. "Of course." Chapter 4. avoiding a war, or accidentally starting one. Jason sat in the middle of what appeared to be an alien diplomatic hall, flanked by heavily armored Von Kell warriors. Viridha sat beside him, her posture stiff with tension, while at the head of the table stood an imposing figure nearly twice Jason's height, wearing an ornate war cloak adorned with battle insignias. His deep, rumbling voice filled the room. You claim to have unknowingly accepted the bond cuff, human. The High Warlord's glowing golden eyes narrowed. Are you a fool, or do you play at ignorance to mock our traditions? Jason, trying very hard not to get himself vaporized, took a deep breath. With all due respect, your warlordness, I had no idea what it meant. Where I come from, wearing jewelry doesn't usually mean you're married for life. A silence fell over the room. One of the older warriors coughed awkwardly. Viridha quickly interjected. Father, Jason is a human from a less informed sector of space. He did not intend disrespect. Our cultures are just vastly different. The High Warlord crossed his arms. Different or not, the law is clear. The bond cuff is sacred. If he were of our people, rejection would be met with honorable combat to the death. Jason paled. Yeah, let's not do that. The High Warlord exhaled heavily. Then, there are only two options. 1. You honor the bond and integrate into our family. 2. You seek the right of severance, a trial that will allow you to prove your worth and break the bond honorably, though no outsider has ever succeeded. Jason glanced at Viridha, whose expression was a mixture of worry and something else. Hope? Affection? He couldn't tell. He sighed. All right, what does this right of severance involves? The warriors around the room chuckled ominously. The High Warlord's smile was equally unsettling. Survival, human. On a planet where even our mightiest warriors struggle to endure. If you survive a full cycle, you may leave. Jason rubbed his temples. Of course. Why would it be anything else? Viridha grabbed his hand, her grip firm. You don't have to do this. We can find another way. Jason smirked. Nah, if there's one thing humans are good at, it's surviving the impossible. The High Warlord's eyes gleamed. Then let the trial begin. Chapter 5. The Oath of the Bonded. The air in the dimly lit chamber crackled with tension. Daniel stared at the ornate silver bracelet on his wrist, its alien etchings glowing faintly with a pulse that matched his heartbeat. Across from him, Zalera, the panicked yet regal alien girl with deep violet eyes, paced back and forth, her long, cerulean tail flicking anxiously. This is bad. Very bad, she muttered, her clawed fingers pressing into her temples. Okay, slow down. What exactly does this lifelong partner thing mean? Daniel asked, rubbing the bracelet as if it might slip off. Spoiler alert, it wouldn't. Zalera inhaled deeply and met his gaze. In my culture, the bonded bracelet is a sacred artifact. It is only worn by two people who pledge themselves to each other. Once activated, it binds our fates together. You mean like marriage? Daniel blurted, his brain short-circuiting. More than that. Our lives are now interwoven. If something happens to one of us, the other will feel it. Zalera's tail swished erratically. And it's not just emotional. If one of us dies. She hesitated, the weight of the words crushing her. Daniel gulped. The other dies too. She nodded solemnly. A heavy silence settled between them. Daniel, a guy who had only come to this alien world for a research exchange program, was now magically tied to a gorgeous, highly stressed alien princess. Or at least, she acted like one. Well, isn't that just fantastic, he said dryly. How do we undo it? Zalera's face fell. We don't. His stomach dropped. You're kidding. Would I be panicking if I were? She shot back, gesturing wildly. Daniel groaned and sat on the floor. Okay. Let's think about this rationally. What do bonded partners even do? Zalera exhaled sharply, pacing again. It means we must learn to exist together, protect each other, and, if necessary, synchronize our minds. Daniel squinted. Synchronize? Like mind readings? She hesitated. It's the deep connection. A bonded pair can sense each other's emotions, sometimes even thoughts. If trained, they can communicate telepathically, move in tandem, and in some cases, share abilities. Daniel's eyebrows shot up. Wait, share abilities? What kind of abilities are we talking about? Zalera sighed, shoulders slumping. We won't know until the bond fully manifests. But right now, the most important thing is that we stay close. If we stray too far, the pain will become unbearable. Daniel felt the weight of her words settle over him like a lead blanket. So we're stuck together. Indefinitely. Yes. Zalera's voice was small, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked truly vulnerable. I never meant for this to happen. Daniel let out a slow breath, trying to ignore the panic clawing at his insides. Well, neither did I. But if we're in this together, we might as well make the best of it. Zalera's eyes widened slightly before softening. You're taking this surprisingly well. Trust me, I'm freaking out internally, he muttered. But panicking won't help. A pause stretched between them before Zalera finally nodded. Then we should start training. If we don't learn to control the bond, it could consume us. Daniel grinned wryly. Oh great, no pressure? Chapter 6, Trial of the Bond. Training, as it turned out, was no walk in the park. Zalera had dragged Daniel to an isolated clearing within the palace's private gardens, an area surrounded by towering bioluminescent trees. The soft hum of alien wildlife filled the air, providing an oddly calming contrast to the sheer amount of frustration Daniel was experiencing. Focus, Zalera instructed, standing a few feet away.
Clear your mind. Feel the bond.
Daniel exhaled sharply. I don't even know what that means. She huffed. It means stop overthinking. Easy for her to say. Daniel had spent the last half hour sitting cross-legged on the grass, trying to sense their so-called bond. So far, all he had to show for it was a headache and the strange sensation that he was being watched. Oh wait, that was just Zalera glaring at him. You're too closed off, she said. You have to be willing to let me in. Daniel rubbed his face.
All right. How do I do that?
Zalera hesitated before stepping closer.
Trust.
You have to trust me. Open your mind, even just a little. Trust an alien girl he'd just met? One who had unknowingly tied their souls together for life. Sure, why not? What could possibly go wrong? Taking a deep breath, Daniel closed his eyes and tried to push past the anxiety coiling in his gut. He thought about Zalera, her voice, her presence, the way she carried herself with both strength and uncertainty. And then something shifted. A spark of warmth bloomed in his chest, foreign yet familiar. His mind tingled as if brushing against an unseen force. Suddenly, he wasn't just aware of himself, he was aware of her.
Zalera gasped.
You did it? Daniel's eyes snapped open. I did.
Yes.
Her voice was hushed with awe. I can feel you. Your emotions. Your presence. He blinked. What am I feeling right now? Zalera tilted her head, then smirked. Frustration. And hunger. Daniel groaned.
Great.
Even my stomach betrays me. She laughed, the sound surprisingly light. You did well. This is the first step. As Daniel stood, stretching his stiff limbs, he met her gaze. Despite the chaos of the past few hours, he had to admit, there was something thrilling about this. Maybe being bonded wouldn't be so bad after all. Chapter 7, A Trial of Unity. Ethan adjusted the ceremonial sash uncomfortably. The fabric shimmered in hues of violet and silver, an elaborate weave he suspected was meant to impress or intimidate. Across from him, Xyrus looked equally uneasy, her long tail twitching as they stood before the towering elders of the Zalzayar Dominion. The grand chamber was built from luminous stone, the air thick with the scent of exotic incense. You, a human, claim the life bond? Elder Vokri's voice was measured, but there was no mistaking the skepticism in his slit-pupiled gaze. This is no trivial matter. The Bracelet of Unity is sacred. A mistake cannot be undone. Xyrus took a step forward, her deep blue skin glowing faintly under the bioluminescent orbs overhead. It was not a mistake. The bond formed of its own accord, by our shared experiences and Words are fleeting, another elder interrupted. The bond must be proven. Ethan exhaled. He had anticipated this. Ever since the realization that wearing the bracelet had tethered him to Xyrus for life, he knew he would have to prove himself. How do we prove it? He asked. The elders exchanged glances before Elder Vokries spoke again. A trial of unity. If your bond is true, you will emerge together. If not, the bond will shatter under the strain. A door opened behind them, leading into darkness. Xyrus glanced at Ethan. He could see the worry in her golden eyes, but he just nodded. Let's do this. Chapter 8. Strength in Unity. The moment Ethan and Xyrus stepped into the chamber, the door sealed behind them. A soft blue glow pulsed to life, revealing an intricate labyrinth of shifting walls and alien glyphs. A voice resonated around them. Your task is simple. Reach the exit together. Should either of you fall behind, the trial is forfeit. Xyrus scanned the walls. This is a shifting maze. It adapts to our movements. Great, Ethan muttered. Because normal mazes weren't hard enough. They pressed forward, moving cautiously. At first, the challenge seemed straightforward. Pathways led to dead ends, but by working together, they navigated through. Then the real test began. A section of the floor collapsed beneath Ethan. He barely managed to grab the ledge, his feet dangling over an abyss. Xyrus lunged, her clawed hands gripping his wrists. Don't let go. Not planning to, he grunted, feeling the weight of his body straining against her hold. With a surge of strength, she pulled him up, and they collapsed onto the safe ground, panting. Their eyes met. If we're going to survive this, we need absolute trust, Xyrus said. Agreed. The maze shifted again, and a new path opened. The air grew thick, and a mist rolled in. Ethan's vision blurred, and suddenly, he was alone. Xyrus? He reached out, but there was only emptiness. A whisper echoed. Are you truly worthy of the bond? Figures emerged from the mist. Memories of his past, his failures, his doubts. The images taunted him, questioning his right to be at Xyrus' side. He clenched his fists. This is an illusion.
She needs me.
I won't fail her. With sheer willpower, he pushed forward, and then Xyrus was there, breaking through her own trial of illusions. Their hands met, and the mist dissipated. A final doorway loomed ahead. A figure stood before it, an injured alien child, crying for help. It was another test. The path to the exit was clear, but to stop and help the child could cost them the trial. Xyrus knelt beside the child. We can't leave them. Ethan nodded. Then we don't. Together, they carried the child forward, even as the walls began to close in. Just as they reached the exit, the chamber erupted in blinding light. When their vision cleared, the elders stood before them once more, solemn and unreadable. Elder Vokries finally spoke. You have passed. The bond is true. Relief flooded Ethan and Xyrus in equal measure, but even as they stepped forward, whispers from the council chamber hinted at darker challenges yet to come. Chapter 9. The Ceremony's Consequence. The moment Aaron stepped into the grand chamber, he felt every eye turned toward him. The circular hall, lined with iridescent banners displaying the crest of the Zalari royal family, hummed with an energy he couldn't quite place. The air had a strange scent, something between burning incense and fresh-cut grass. It was unnerving, yet oddly pleasant. Lyrana stood beside him, her usually composed face betraying nervousness. Her lavender skin glowed under the soft bioluminescent lights, and her 4 delicate fingers fidgeted against the long ceremonial robe she now wore. It was nothing like her usual form-fitting uniform. This was heavier, embroidered with patterns that shimmered with each movement. Aaron shifted uncomfortably in his own ceremonial attire, which felt like a mix between a toga and a military dress uniform. He hadn't expected to be part of any kind of official ceremony when he joined the diplomatic corps, much less one tied to something as serious as an interspecies partnership. The High Elder of the Zalari stepped forward, their elongated features betraying no emotion. The elder raised a 3-fingered hand, and the murmuring crowd fell silent. You have completed the ritual unknowingly, the elder began, voice reverberating in the chamber. But intention is irrelevant in the eyes of tradition. Aaron swallowed hard. Is there a way to, reverse it? The crowd gasped. Lyrena shot him a look that was equal parts panic and exasperation. The elder did not react. The bond is not simply a legal contract, but a spiritual one. The energies of the bracelet have intertwined your fates. To sever it, the elder paused, letting the weight of their words sink in. Would require a ceremony far more painful than the one you undertook. It is not a path one should take lightly. Aaron felt the bracelet on his wrist pulse, as if responding to the elder's words. He resisted the urge to rub at it. So, he said slowly, we're stuck like this? Lyrena, visibly struggling to maintain her composure, took a deep breath. Not stuck, she said through gritted teeth. It simply means we must adjust. Aaron sighed. Great. Adjust. The ceremony continued, but Aaron barely registered it. His mind swirled with thoughts of what this meant for his future. Was he truly bound to Lyrena for life? And what exactly did lifelong partners entail in Zalari culture? As the final words of the ritual were spoken, he knew one thing for sure. He needed answers. Chapter 10. Bound by Fate, Tested by Fire. Aaron had little time to process the weight of his new reality before chaos erupted. The ceremony had barely ended when the warning klaxons blared through the chamber. The once dignified murmurs of the gathered Zalari nobles transformed into panic shouts. Soldiers rushed forward, hands gripping the sleek energy weapons holstered at their sides. Lyrena grabbed Aaron's arm, her grip surprisingly strong for her slender frame. Come with me.
Now.
What's happening? Aaron demanded as she pulled him down a side corridor. The Velix, she hissed, her usually measured voice laced with urgency. They must have detected the ceremony's energy signature. They've been waiting for a moment of vulnerability. Aaron didn't know much about the Velix, only that they were a rogue faction that had split from the Zalari centuries ago. What he did know, however, was that they were notorious for their unpredictability and their ruthlessness. Explosions rocked the palace as the distant sound of weapons fire echoed through the halls. Lyrena didn't slow, weaving through corridors with practiced ease. Aaron struggled to keep up. Wait, he gasped. Where are we going?
To the ship, she said.
We have to leave the capital. Aaron yanked his arm free. Leave? We can't just abandon everyone. Lyrena whirled on him, eyes flashing. This is bigger than you or me. If the Velix capture you, they could use the bond to manipulate Zalari leadership. Aaron blinked. Wait, what? The bracelet, she explained hurriedly. It's more than just a symbol. It links us at a fundamental level. If you die, I die. Aaron felt his stomach drop. Excuse me? Another explosion sent debris cascading from the ceiling. Lyrena flinched but stood her ground. We don't have time for this. We need to move. Aaron exhaled sharply.
Fine.
But we're coming back to help once we figure out what's going on. She hesitated, then nodded. Agreed.
They ran.
The palace was in chaos, guards engaging in fierce battles with Velix infiltrators. The enemy's sleek black armor was a stark contrast to the silver and white of the Zalari soldiers. Plasma bolts flew past as Aaron and Lyrena ducked through a maintenance tunnel, the air thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning metal. Aaron clenched his fists. He had joined the diplomatic corps to build alliances, to bridge gaps between species. Now he was caught in a war he barely understood. But one thing was clear, whether he liked it or not, his fate was now inextricably tied to Lyrena's. And he would see this through to the end. Chapter 11. The Festival of Bonds. The bustling capital of Zaltor hummed with excitement as the Festival of Bonds commenced. Neon banners depicting the sacred wristbands fluttered overhead, and the air carried the scent of exotic alien spices. Damien, still adjusting to his newfound partnership with Celera, the stunning yet panicked alien noblewoman, couldn't help but marvel at the extravagant display. Are you certain we should be out here? He asked, tugging at the wristband that had irrevocably bound him to Celera. You did say wearing this made us lifelong partners, right? Celera, dressed in an elegant violet robe embroidered with golden glyphs, looked around nervously.
Yes.
And that means my family is watching. They expect us to act like partners. I haven't even had time to explain human customs to them yet. So, should I hold your hand or something? Damien teased, raising an eyebrow. Solara's already purple complexion darkened as she flushed. You barbarian. Public displays of affection are reserved for deep, committed. Oh, stars above, mother is coming. Before Damien could react, Solara clutched his arm, plastering an exaggerated smile on her face. A tall, imposing woman approached, her elegant horns adorned with ceremonial jewelry. So this is the human who has claimed my daughter's bond, Lady Viral said, her voice both regal and scrutinizing. Damien, unsure of the proper greeting, opted for an awkward bow. Nice to meet you, Lady Viral. Your daughter and I. Spare me your pleasantries. I will judge your worth myself, she interrupted. There is a ritual challenge to ensure that you are deserving of the bond you now share. I trust you will not embarrass us, humans. Damien glanced at Solara, whose expression was somewhere between mortified and pleading. What exactly does this challenge entail? Oh, nothing too demanding, Lady Viral said with a smirk. Just a duel. Solara let out a strangled noise. Mother, that is a barbaric. It is tradition, Lady Viral insisted. Let the festival witness the strength of this so-called partner of yours. Damien sighed. Guess I don't have a choice. Who am I fighting? A large, armored Zaltorian male stepped forward, flexing his 4 muscular arms. Me, he rumbled. I am Vexen, Solara's former intended. I will reclaim her honor. Damien groaned. Of course you are. Chapter 12. The Duel of the Bonded. The dueling circle was a raised platform in the center of the festival, surrounded by an eager crowd. The glow of bioluminescent lanterns illuminated the arena, casting long shadows over Damien and his towering opponent. Solara was beside herself. I cannot believe my mother invoked the challenge. You are not Zaltorian. Humans do not even have dueling customs. Yeah, well, tell that to Vexen over there, Damien muttered, rolling his shoulders. Look at him. Forearms, armor, probably combat training since birth. This is gonna suck. The announcer, a boisterous Zaltorian elder, raised his arms. Let the duel of bonds commence. Vexen wasted no time, lunging at Damien with alarming speed. The human barely dodged, rolling to the side as the crowd roared. You are not worthy, Vexen bellowed, swinging a massive fist. You defile the sacred bond. Damien ducked, barely avoiding a blow that would have knocked him unconscious. You people really take relationships seriously, he grunted, kicking off the ground and delivering a quick jab to Vexen's ribs. It was like punching a steel wall. Vexen grinned. Is that all, humans? Damien backed up, brain racing. All right, let's think about this. He's got 4 arms, but that means more blind spots, right? His military training kicked in. Instead of a direct attack, he weaved between Vexen's strikes, letting the brute wear himself down. Solara watched with wide eyes. He's adapting. After several minutes, Damien saw his opening. He feinted left, then ducked low, sweeping Vexen's leg. The Zaltorian staggered, and Damien capitalized, leaping onto his back and locking an arm around his throat. Yield, Damien ordered. Vexen struggled, but, with his oxygen cut off, he was forced to tap the ground in surrender. The arena was silent for a moment. Then, cheers erupted from the crowd. Lady Viral studied Damien with new interest. Perhaps my daughter's bond is not entirely misplaced. Solara exhaled in relief. You won. I cannot believe it. Damien grinned, brushing dust off his sleeves. Neither can I. Solara hesitated before reaching out, gently taking his hand. Perhaps we should discuss what this bond truly means. Damien squeezed her fingers.
Yeah.
I think we should. Chapter 13. A Bond Unshaken. The tension in the room was suffocating. Ethan sat at the edge of his seat, staring at the shimmering bracelet on his wrist. Across from him, Velia, The silver-skinned alien girl who had just moments ago been laughing at one of his Earth jokes now looked as if she'd seen a ghost. Her normally vibrant purple eyes were wide with panic, her long, glistening hair trembling as she took a step back. You actually put it on," she whispered, barely audible. "Ethan, do you understand what that means?" He looked down at the intricate piece of alien jewelry. It was lightweight, warm against his skin, and had adjusted to his wrist size as soon as he had slid it on. Well, you said it was a gift, right? I thought it would be rude to refuse." Velia groaned, running a hand down her face.
Yes.
It was a gift, but not just any gift. That's not a regular bracelet. That's a lyre vital. It's a sacred bond token among my people. By wearing it, you've basically declared that we're... She gulped, her cheeks darkening to a deep indigo. Lifelong partners. Ethan blinked, processing that information. Wait. He held up a hand. So, what you're saying is, I accidentally just got space married. Velia groaned again, nodding furiously.
Yes.
And there's no one doing it. Once a lyre vital is worn, it becomes part of the wearer's soul signature. If you take it off now, it'll... She hesitated. Well, it won't kill you, or anything. But it'll feel like losing a piece of yourself. And if I remove mine, it'll cause me actual, physical pain. She shuddered. The bond has already begun linking us. Ethan exhaled. Okay, that's a lot. But there has to be some way to undo it, right? I mean, your people must have annulments, or... Velia shook her head rapidly. We don't. Once the bond is formed, it's eternal. It's meant to be a testament of unwavering devotion. She paused, eyes flickering with uncertainty. I was going to give it to you eventually, but not like this. I wanted you to choose it. Now it just looks like I tricked you into this. Ethan could hear the guilt in her voice. He took a slow breath, trying to collect his thoughts. His heart was racing, but oddly, not just out of panic. There was something right about the bracelet, like it belonged on his wrist.
He sighed.
Okay, deep breaths. No one tricked anyone. This is just a misunderstanding, right? We can work through it. Velia hesitated, then nodded. Why, okay, we'll figure it out together. But neither of them could shake the feeling that fate had already made its choice. Chapter 14. The First Test. The day after Ethan had unknowingly sealed his bond with Velia, things had only gotten more complicated. For one, the bracelet had begun to react to his emotions. If he was nervous, it pulsed lightly. If he was frustrated, it grew warm. And when he had accidentally brushed Velia's hand while passing her a datapad that morning, the thing had practically hummed in delight. Velia noticed it too. It's synchronizing with you faster than I expected, she muttered, watching the bracelet with a mixture of fascination and concern. This shouldn't be happening so quickly. Great, Ethan said sarcastically. I'm really looking forward to whatever's next. He barely had time to finish that sentence before the ship's emergency sirens blared. Velia's head snapped up. Something's wrong. Let's move. They rushed to the main deck, where Captain Orvek, a towering reptilian alien, was barking orders at the crew. We've got incoming. Unidentified vessels approaching at high speed. Ethan barely had time to react before Velia grabbed his arm. The bracelet on his wrist pulsed in sync with the one on hers, sending a strange sensation through his body, a feeling of unity. We fight together now, Ethan, she said, her voice firm, but not unkind. Whatever happens, we face it as one. And for the first time, Ethan truly understood what the bond meant. Not just a promise, but a partnership that would be tested in fire and battle.